Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Michael Noland here, and tonight we're going to talk a little bit Led Zeppelin and a little bit Rolling Stones, and we're going to ask the basic question: was Led Zeppelin responsible for changing the Rolling Stones' whole approach to music? Now, we're going to talk about an article that featured an interview with Charlie Watts prior to him dying, saying that indeed the Rolling Stones had to adjust their approach to live performance because of Led Zeppelin. And of course, none of you would be surprised if I told you I am a major Led Zeppelin fan, and that whole article got me to thinking, folks. Now, first of all, the reason that I am a Led Zeppelin fan has always been the music first. It wasn't the fact that live they were this fabulous, jamming sort of heavy rock band, and it wasn't their dynamic personalities, by the way, that seemed to leak into the very songs this group fashioned. No, it was the songs themselves as presented on their albums that sold me on this fabulous group. But they did sound great live, and they did have wonderful, magnetic personalities. Soft-spoken for the most part, but magnetic nonetheless. And then, of course, there's the whole Led Zeppelin story. I mean, talk about a Shakespearean play. The death of young Carrick, Robert, their lead singer's son, the horrible accident that he was in, throat surgery on top of all of that, with him having trouble reaching those highest registers he had previously. And then there was Jimmy, as innocent as a little old lady collecting antiques on one hand, with darker interests on the other. The studiousness of John Paul Jones and the wild abandonment and approach to drumming of John Bonham, the greatest rock drummer to ever live. And of course, all of this came out live. And you know what? It's on their first tour where we saw the first impressions that Led Zeppelin was going to make, didn't we? Opening up for acts and then overriding those acts, and then having acts that didn't want to open for them. Pretty soon, them touring as a total, absolute rock phenomena and show unto themselves. And it showed on their albums, didn't it? Their first magnificent album coming out and promising so much. Led Zeppelin II, The Brown Bomber, fulfilling every single, well, almost every single promise of that first album. They're daring to change on their third album, solidifying with what most people would consider their greatest album of all time, Led Zeppelin IV, or Untitled Led Zeppelin, or Led Zeppelin so and on and on and on. And finally culminating, and they would go to greater heights even after this, but culminating with the magnificent Houses of the Holy, their greatest single disc studio achievement, in my opinion. But what about the Stones? You know, the Stones is really the last remaining British invasion band on the planet, aren't they? And you know what? They've always managed to keep within a step or two of the top draw at the time. In the 60s, it was the Beatles. And with Led Zeppelin, the Stones was still a major event when they showed up. But why was that so? Mainly because they saw what Led Zeppelin was doing, according to Charlie Watts, and they knew they had to make adjustments. Now, the one thing they didn't mention in this article, and like I said, that article got me thinking. Think of what that entails. A world premiere band stepping up their game to perform at larger and ever larger concerts live, even having a couple of tragedies in their adjustment period, didn't they? But think about it. Once they knew that was the direction they were heading, what did that influence? It influenced the music. It influenced the new music on their newer albums. And you know what? It's during this time period that I personally think the Rolling Stones were truly at their greatest. Now, don't get me wrong, some of their 60s output is some of the very best music the 60s had to offer. But at this point, especially with the addition of Mick Taylor at first, they had a musicianship, especially on Sticky Fingers, and they had that experimental quality on Exile on Main Street, and they were changing every album, not quite like Led Zeppelin, but see, the decision to tour larger venues, not only did the songs become longer per track on the album, but they were put together with the idea of extending them live. But hold on a second, the more I think about it even further, is it so much that Led Zeppelin changed the Rolling Stones? Certainly they influenced them at this point, and that did change their music. Or were the Rolling Stones always willing to change? You know what I think of the Rolling Stones? I think they are the greatest chameleon band in rock and roll, but that's not a cut down of this band at all. Yes, they would follow styles. Yes, they would even follow approaches to albums, not just with Led Zeppelin, but with the Beatles even more so, right? But you know, so was everybody else trying to catch up with the Beatles, and Led Zeppelin later and often emulated both bands. But you know, with the Rolling Stones, by emulating other artistic approaches, they somehow had this unique ability to come up with something brand new, familiar sounding often, but still brand new and very valid. And you know what? In the end, I think that's why with the Rolling Stones, we see truly great classic rock albums from this band. But we also see a whole lot of lesser efforts, or if not actually lesser efforts, often less recognized by the current rock fan. Now, as I've said before, I have a couple of Rolling Stone albums that I truly revere, and this article kind of listed those albums and ranked them, and I could not believe the abhorrent ranking they gave Bridges to Babylon. I still think that's one of Rolling Stone's finest albums. It represented the decade well, it represented the time period well, and they were on a creative high for sure. Of course, every band has a major masterpiece that slightly rises to the top, and in my opinion, that is their magnificent Sticky Fingers. With Exile on Main Street being a necessity, and kind of Black and Blue being one also, and the willingness to change, and trading down perhaps as far as musicianship, a guitar player after Mick Taylor left, but choosing a guitar player that played to the crowd a lot better. You know, I think the Stones is the one band that has survived the longest because of their willingness and their ability to change. I still say Living in a Ghost Town is one of the best Rolling Stone singles I've ever heard in my life. Now, getting back to Led Zeppelin here, in my next Led Zeppelin Decoded video, I will be covering The Brown Bomber, Led Zeppelin 2, and what a magnificent album this is. It not only pointed to a future direction, but it fulfilled all of the promises of their first album. All right, so a real quick video tonight. I want to thank you for watching. By the way, if you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a thumbs up. That helps the YouTube algorithm better identify the channel. The channel grows as a result of that, folks. And these names you see in front of me are all brand new subscribers, and they are being shouted out like I do in all of my videos. Now, we will be stopping the shout-outs, at least in this fashion, in the future, but that isn't going to happen until October 28th. October 28th, this channel turns 1. But up to and including the 28th, if you are a new subscriber, you will get your shout-outs. As I've said, I'm a little bit behind. It'll take a while to get to your shout-outs, but I am keeping track, and they will come, folks. As always, feel free to share my videos. You know, it was the sharing of my videos that really, at first, put this channel on the map. One of our tribal members, Helene, shared my video with Wayne from Soul Train Bro. Soul Train Bro did 2 video shoutouts, actually displaying my entire video on his channel. Wonderful. You know what? And if you get a chance, go over to his channel. The complexion of the channel has changed, but he's doing tributes now. And no one, I mean nobody, could do better at doing these tributes. He's got just such a cool way about him. And if you haven't had a chance to subscribe to this channel, it is so, I won't say freaking, I promise. But it is easy. All you have to do is hit that subscribe to the tribe button, then tap that top bell icon for further notifications of all my future videos, and brother, you're set. So that's it for the video for tonight. Again, I'm Michael Nolan. This is always the bottom line. We are the tribe, and I'll see you in my next video.